Cowboys fans, there's been a lot moving behind the scenes, and the last stretch of hours has reshaped part of the landscape of the division. The biggest ripple came from New York, where the Giants made a decisive move by locking in John Harbaugh as their new head coach. From a league-wide perspective, this is not just another hire, it is a statement. Harbaugh was widely viewed as the most accomplished option available, and bringing in a coach with that kind of resume instantly changes expectations inside the NFC East. The Giants are no longer a passive rebuilding team. With Harbaugh in charge, they immediately become more structured, more physical, and far more competitive week to week. From Dallas' point of view, this matters because the margin for error inside the division just got smaller. There may be younger or less proven coaches who eventually shine, but Harbaugh is a known quantity. He brings credibility, authority in the locker room, and a clear identity. That forces the Cowboys to be sharp not only on the field, but in how they construct their staff moving forward, especially on defense, where the search for a new coordinator continues to expand. That defensive coordinator search has quietly become one of the most wide-ranging processes the Cowboys have conducted in years. One name tied indirectly to the Giants situation is Jim Leonhard, a coach Dallas spoke with early in the process. The important thing to understand here is that an interview does not equal exclusivity. Just because Leonhard talked with the Cowboys does not mean he is locked into that path. Teams like the Giants, now under Harbaugh, could easily explore similar candidates, especially those with strong defensive backgrounds and adaptable schemes. When several teams are shopping in the same aisle, overlap is inevitable. This overlap shows up again with Charlie Bolin, who has been serving in an interim role with the Giants. Dallas requested an interview, and that request moved forward without obstruction because of his interim status. That detail matters. It opened a door that might not exist under normal circumstances. Bolin has support inside the Giants organization, and there is a real possibility they try to keep him in the building in some capacity, even if not as the primary defensive coordinator. Still, the Cowboys getting time with him speaks to how thorough this search has become. The reality around the league is simple. There are double-digit defensive coordinator openings this cycle, and everyone wants the same handful of strong minds. That means patience is no longer optional. Dallas cannot assume they're the only destination or that interviews will move in a straight line. Some candidates will circle back later. Others may wait to see how head coaching vacancies shake out before committing to coordinator roles. As the list of candidates grows, another notable name entered the conversation with DeMarcus Covington set to interview. Covington brings experience from multiple defensive systems, including time leading a defense at the professional level and coordinating the run game with Green Bay. His background reflects something important about this Cowboys search. They're not just looking at familiar faces or obvious choices. They're casting a wide net that includes coaches with different philosophies, different teaching styles, and different paths to the league. That wide net approach is a departure from how Dallas has often handled major coaching decisions in the past. This time, the process feels deliberate. It feels exploratory. There's a recognition that defensive identity cannot be rebuilt by checking a box or rushing to the finish line. The front office seems to understand that getting this hire right matters as much as who lines up at linebacker or defensive end next season. Still, all of this circles back to one name that continues to loom over the entire search: Brian Flores. Around the league, Flores is viewed as the gold standard among available defensive minds. His ability to adapt game plans weekly, disguise pressure, and maximize talent makes him incredibly attractive. At the same time, that reputation is exactly why landing him would be difficult. Flores is not just competing offers for coordinator roles. He is competing with head coaching opportunities and with teams willing to reshape parts of their organization to fit his vision. There has been frustration from some corners about the lack of immediate movement between Dallas and Flores, but context matters. Every Cowboys interview so far has been conducted virtually. This stage appears to be about information gathering, alignment checks, and narrowing the field. Teams that have already moved to in-person interviews are simply in a different phase of their process. That does not mean Dallas is behind. It means they are methodical. For a coach like Flores, timing is everything. If you're actively involved in head coaching discussions or high-level negotiations, a virtual meeting may not be the priority. Dallas may be positioning itself to engage those top-tier candidates later, once the field clears and mutual interest becomes clearer. It is a calculated gamble, but one that fits the broader approach being taken. What is clear is that this is unfamiliar territory for the Cowboys. They have not conducted a search this extensive for a coordinator in well over a decade. In the past, decisions were often swift and internal. This time, the organization is stepping outside its comfort zone, and that naturally brings uncertainty. With so many teams eventually entering the defensive coordinator market, competition will only intensify, and the Cowboys will need to stay flexible as the process continues to evolve. As this search stretches forward, the pressure is not just about choosing the right name, but about understanding the timing of the entire league. Right now, many franchises are still consumed by head coaching decisions, and that naturally slows everything else down. Defensive coordinators who believe they can climb one more rung are not rushing to lock themselves into a secondary role. Dallas is operating in that window where patience can either look like wisdom later or hesitation in the moment, depending on how the final hire performs. One thing that stands out is how intentional this process feels compared to past cycles. The Cowboys are clearly evaluating a wide range of philosophies, from aggressive pressure-heavy systems to more disciplined read-and-react structures. That matters because the roster itself sits somewhere in the middle. There is speed on the edge, versatility at linebacker, and a secondary that thrives when communication is sharp. The next defensive coordinator has to match those strengths while also masking weaknesses that have been exposed in recent seasons. This is why the idea of narrowing the field too early would be dangerous. A virtual interview allows Dallas to understand how a coach teaches, how he communicates, and how he sees the game without committing to a final direction. Once that filter is applied, the in-person phase becomes more meaningful. That is when the conversations shift from philosophy to specifics, from whiteboard concepts to how players are used on third down, in the red zone, and late in games when the pressure is highest. Brian Flores remains central to that discussion, even without a formal interview taking place yet. Coaches around the league respect how demanding he is, and that reputation cuts both ways. On one hand, players often respond to structure and accountability. On the other, that level of intensity requires full organizational alignment. Dallas has to decide not only if Flores is the best football fit, but if the environment is ready for someone who challenges comfort zones daily. There is also the reality that Flores may not even be available by the time Dallas reaches its final phase. If a head coaching opportunity opens at the right moment, he could be gone before the Cowboys ever sit across from him in person. That does not mean Dallas failed. It simply reflects how competitive the market is for elite defensive minds. When someone is viewed as transformative, everyone wants a seat at that table. Beyond Flores, there are other candidates whose names have not generated as much public noise, but could ultimately align better with what the Cowboys want to build. Sometimes the best hire is not the loudest one. It is the coach who understands how to evolve weekly, how to teach young players, and how to collaborate with the offensive staff so the team wins complementary football. Those traits do not always show up in headlines, but they show up on Sundays. The league-wide demand for defensive coordinators is only going to grow. As more head coaches are hired, staffs will be reshuffled, promotions will happen, and new vacancies will appear. What looks like 11 openings now could easily climb higher. That means Dallas is competing not just with divisional rivals, but with half the league for a limited pool of proven talent. In that environment, rushing rarely leads to clarity. There is also a psychological element to this process that fans often overlook. Candidates want to feel wanted, but they also want stability. They want to know the vision, the expectations, and how much autonomy they will have. A thorough interview process can actually be a selling point, signaling that the organization values fit over convenience. For a coach confident in his approach, that can be attractive rather than discouraging. As days pass, speculation will naturally increase. Every interview request will be dissected. Every delay will be questioned. That is the cost of transparency in a high-profile market. But behind closed doors, this is about alignment more than urgency. Dallas is trying to avoid the cycle of short-term fixes and instead land someone who can define the defense for years, not just survive a season. What ultimately matters is not how fast the decision is made, but how clearly it is made. The Cowboys have talent on defense that is ready to be maximized, and the next coordinator will play a massive role in determining whether that unit becomes a strength or remains inconsistent. With the division getting tougher and expectations staying high, this hire will echo far beyond the offseason, shaping how Dallas competes when the games start to matter most. There's also the internal evaluation happening at the same time, where the Cowboys are looking at their own roster through the lens of each potential coordinator. Certain coaches lean heavily on disguise and pressure. Others prefer controlling space and forcing mistakes through discipline. That distinction matters when projecting how players like Micah Parsons, the interior defensive line, and the young defensive backs would be deployed. A coordinator who cannot fully unlock those pieces would be a step sideways rather than forward, no matter how strong the resume looks on paper. Another layer to this search is how the defensive coordinator would mesh with the head coach and the broader staff. Football decisions do not happen in isolation. Game management, situational football, and even practice structure are all influenced by how coaches communicate and collaborate. Dallas has to be confident that the next defensive leader can challenge ideas without creating friction and adapt without losing authority. That balance is delicate, and it is often only revealed through extended conversations, not rushed decisions. The division itself adds urgency without demanding panic. With teams around the Cowboys making aggressive moves and reshaping their identities, standing still is not an option. At the same time, reacting emotionally to what rivals are doing can lead to mistakes. Dallas has to trust its evaluation process and believe that the right hire will hold up not just against one opponent, but across a full season filled with different styles, quarterbacks, and offensive philosophies. As this continues, the focus will slowly shift from who is being interviewed to what kind of defense the Cowboys truly want to be. Physical, flexible, disciplined, aggressive, or some combination of all four. That answer will ultimately point to the right name. Until then, the process remains fluid, with conversations still happening, options still open, and the direction of the defense still being shaped behind the scenes. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. The NFL landscape just shook with whispers that now seem to be reality. Saquon Barkley, one of the league's most electrifying running backs, has reportedly found a new home, and it's in the heart of Texas. Rumors have been swirling for weeks about Barkley's next move, with speculation pointing towards several playoff contenders. But sources close to the situation suggest the deal has finally materialized. According to insiders, the New York Giants star, known for his combination of speed, agility, and power, will now be donning the iconic blue and silver of the Dallas Cowboys. For years, Barkley has been a centerpiece of the Giants' offense, carrying the weight of a team eager to reclaim past glory. His ability to change a game with a single explosive play has made him a household name, and the thought of him running through defensive lines wearing a different uniform is enough to set social media ablaze. Cowboys fans, in particular, are buzzing with anticipation at the idea of pairing Barkley with an already dynamic offensive roster. Speculation is rampant about how his presence could reshape the team's strategy, potentially offering a renewed threat in both the running and passing games. Questions linger, of course. How will Barkley adapt to a new playbook? What does this mean for the Cowboys' existing backfield? And how will the coaching staff balance carries and opportunities among a crowded roster? There are whispers that this move could signal a more aggressive approach in the NFC East, as Dallas appears determined to leverage every possible advantage. Analysts are already theorizing about potential partnerships in the backfield, explosive third-down packages, and how Barkley's vision and power could complement the team's passing attack. Off the field, Barkley's move carries equally tantalizing intrigue. Could his presence in Dallas spark a ripple effect in the division, influencing free agency moves or even reshaping long-term roster strategies? With the league constantly evolving, few moves generate this level of speculation, blending on-field performance with off-field narrative. Whether this signals the beginning of a new era for the Cowboys or just another high-profile shakeup, one thing is clear. The chatter surrounding Barkley is impossible to ignore. Rumors have become reality, and now the NFL world watches with bated breath as Saquon Barkley steps into a new chapter wearing the blue and silver. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.